And salutations, my dearest friends. My name is Samantha and welcome back to Trope Week. Trope Week is that every day for an entire week I pick one very specific book trope and I do a whole video on book recommendations for you. And today I'm going to be talking about sweepingly romantic books. The most romantic books that I have ever read. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Hello, how are you? Welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys, when I was creating the list for this video, I only have a handful because to like give a book the title of being like sweepingly romantic and like the most romantic book I've ever read, like that is beyond a 5-star read for me. It takes a lot to get that title. The book has to be doing something very special, and as I was creating this list I started crying thinking about these books and how much I love them. I'll start crying right now. Like, literally, what the fuck? Like, if that's not the definition of a freaking cancer, I don't know what is. Anyways, let's keep on track. This video is in collaboration with one of my favorite YouTubers ever, and that is Crystal from Crystal Bookish Life. Crystal, oh, she is so special. I really wanted to do this video in particular with Crystal Trope because the way Crystal talks about books, you can just tell that she is a true just lover of romance books. Like, she glows, if that makes sense. Like, when she talks about books, you can really tell how passionate she is, and like no matter what book she's talking about, she immediately makes me want to read it. We have very similar reading tastes, and I know that she tends to enjoy like the emotional connection between characters more than like the physical connection, which definitely is kind of what this trope is. It's more focused on that like emotional soulmate energy, if that makes sense. Crystal loves historical romance. She has a historical romance book club with Jen from the Book Refuge. If you guys want to check that out, they pick books every single month and have live shows, and it's a really fun time. She also really loves like fantasy romances and mafia romances, so make sure to check out Crystal. I will definitely leave her channel and her video down below. My first couple of recommendations are historical romances because I feel like this genre in particular goes with this trope. Something about historical romances inherently are just so sweepingly romantic, especially like old school historical romances. They're very lyrical and it's just, the stakes are higher. I don't know. This genre in general just gives me like sweepingly romantic vibes. And the number one book, like if I had to recommend a book out of this entire video, it's definitely going to be this one. This is the most romantic book that I have ever read. And I also know it's one of Crystal's favorites, so she probably agrees with me. And that is Indigo by Beverly Jenkins. Oh my goodness, I have read this book so many times. Beverly Jenkins in general has phenomenal writing style, and I just love all of her books. I don't think I've given any of her books a low rating. She's just perfect. I love her. This book is a historical romance that takes place in America during the Underground Railroad. Our heroine Hester is a safe house for the Underground Railroad, and that is where she meets our hero Galen under his moniker the Black Daniel. He is notorious in the Underground Railroad because he has kind of dedicated his life to saving Black women, children, and men. He is injured and ends up going to her house because it's a safe house, and she nurses him back to health, and from there it follows their beautiful romance. I don't want to do any spoilers, but there's a proposal in this book that is like the most romantic thing I've ever heard. The dialogue, the way our hero like absolutely cherishes our heroine. I could cry. I love this book with my entire heart, body, and soul. The thing about Beverly Jenkins' writing is so magical. It really is. The way she beautifully intertwines her romance with culture and history is absolutely amazing. Heroines are so strong and our heroes just like absolutely worship them. The chemistry, the soulmate energy, everything. Just like look at this cover. Like I think this tells you like everything you need to know. Do you see this? Do you see this? I could endlessly recommend her books and talk about Beverly Jenkins. I loved Night Song. I also really love her Destiny series. I have a whole video on this series. This is Destiny Surrender and Destiny Captive. I specifically love Destiny Captive because this features a Dominican heroine, and I'm Dominican. The first books that I had ever read with a Dominican character, her and Adriana Herrera, when I read their books for the very first time, I could see myself represented in a way that I had never seen in mass media before, or in romance in particular. Just to see like that culture, from the music to the food to the color of our skin. It's just so special to see yourself represented in romance books, and I think Beverly Jenkins like really did that for me in this book. Oh my god, I'm not gonna cry. Stop, Samantha, what the fuck? I just love her books, I really do. Okay, I'm not gonna cry, and I need to move on because I've been talking about her for a really long time. Okay, so the next historic romance that I want to talk about is The Highwaymen by Kerrigan Byrne. This was one of those historicals that really got me into historicals. I listened to the audio and I was immediately obsessed. This book is this book also gives very much soulmate energy, and it is also a little bit of a second chance romance. Characters are two orphans who become childhood sweethearts, kind of find solace with each other because they have a pretty dark past. I will say that Kerrigan Byrne usually has some darker themes in her book, so just make sure to check out the trigger warnings. This one does have trigger warnings for sexual assault, so just make sure to read the trigger warnings before going into this book. Our heroine is sexually assaulted when she is a young girl, and our hero goes to save her, and something happens where he ends up getting arrested and they get separated. I don't want to do too many spoilers, but they do get separated. Kind of promise that they will always love each other and that they will always be like married to each other in their hearts, and it fast forwards to years later where it follows our heroine. She is working for Scotland Yard and she meets the notorious Dorian Blackwell, who is tied to her past in more ways than one. Again, I'm not going to do too many spoilers, but oh my goodness. Like, this is a love story that is told like across years of pining and angst and just the quotes in this book. There's one quote I like took a snippet of just to like tell you guys. Our hero is talking about our heroine and says she was the only reason, his only reason for everything. So freaking romantic. I love this book. The next book that I think is so romantic, and it is one of my favorite historical romances. We read this for the Historical Hellions. This book follows our characters Christian and Maddie. Early on in this book, our hero Christian has a stroke and he is immediately sent to an insane asylum. Because of his stroke, he loses some of his motor skills. Heroine Maddie is very religious and she ends up working for the insane asylum, and she's one of the very first people to actually take time to get to know him, to understand him, and to realize he is a very intelligent. Loved about this book was like she was kind of like his savior, like the first person to like truly see him. I know a lot of people, and I will give this caveat, a lot of people when reading this book they say it reads more like women's fiction because a lot of this book is talking about like Christian's backstory. Yes, I will say that, but like the ending I feel like saved this book. I think this book is incredibly romantic. It does give off literary fiction vibes just a little bit because the writing is so lyrical, and it is a pretty long book. It's like 600 pages, but it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. I love it so much. I'm really happy that I read it. The next book that I want to recommend is a novella, and I feel like that just shows like how romantic that this book is that the author was able to really tug on those like emotional heartstrings and create that soulmate bond between our characters in such a short amount of time. I want to recommend is Divine River by Mariana Vivancos. I really hope I pronounced her name right. This is a new novella author to me. I saw some of her books being recommended on Kindle Unlimited. I read one and I literally binged everything that she has ever written on Kindle Unlimited because her writing is phenomenal. It is, gosh, I really want everyone to read this book. So this is a male-male romance. It follows Mike and Jason in this very small town that he's lived in his entire life, and he gets a new neighbor, and that is Jason. Jason very much gives a golden retriever energy and immediately is determined to become best friends with Mike. So it is a friends to lovers romance. It is a romance, but a lot of it focuses on Mike's personal journey and identity. He identifies as gay, but in this small town it's not very accepting, and his family, his dad, is also not very accepting. So he's hidden that part of him for so long, and he doesn't know how he really wants to operate in the real world. He feels like he has to like put on a persona in front of everyone else, but that's not who he really is. This book, he's really like tearing down society norms and everything that had been told to him as a child. They like to be both masculine and feminine. He likes to wear pretty dresses and pretty skirts, but he's never really been in a place where he can do that until he meets Jason. Jason just loves him like for who he is as a person and really supports him and helps him discover who he is. And Mike really doesn't know what he wants to be because he's never been allowed to explore that, and he's never had someone who was accepting and loved him for who he was as a person. Jason just lets him know that like every step of the way he will love him and it's okay. That Mike is really able to be fluid with his sexuality and who he is as a person. His family really wasn't accepting, and Jason was like the first one to be accepting, and oh my god, it's the most beautiful friends to lovers romance One, because you could tell they just love each other like as people, and they're like true soulmates, like the definition of soulmates. And because they were friends first, they built that friendship, and then everything else is just so absolutely beautiful. This book made me cry for literally hours because the way that Mike like came to love himself in his relationship and as an individual, oh my god, I'm gonna fucking cry right now. Okay. No, I have to move on. I still have more books to talk about. I'm a mess in this video, goddamn. These books are just so beautiful, read them. The next one I want to talk about is Wolf Song by TJ Klune. This is another male-male romance, and it's a paranormal romance. It's the first book in the Green Creek series. It follows Ox and Joe. Ox moves into this small town called Green Creek, and he's immediately drawn into like the secrecy of the town and his neighbors. Well, it turns out that his neighbors are werewolves. This is a paranormal romance. He immediately has a bond with their youngest brother, Joe. This does have a 6-year age gap, so when they meet, they are 10 and 16, and it is immediately known that they're soulmates and that they're fated mates. But because of the age gap, they really develop a friendship and a bond first. And I don't want to do any spoilers, but there is a portion where they are separated, and years later, they come back together when they're older, so it's a little bit of a second chance romance. And after all of those years, they still are so madly, deeply in love with each other. The soulmate energy in this book, oh my gosh, like it is a fated mates romance, so of course it's going to be like sweepingly romantic, but this entire series is just gorgeous. Like I think every book in this series is sweepingly romantic, and I love the plot, I love the characters, I love TJ Klune's writing, everything is beautiful. Next book that I think is sweepingly romantic is Stolen Heir by Sophie Lark. Lark writes mafia romances. This is the second book in her Brutal Birthright series. Sophie Lark does have a reading order, and I do have a whole video on this series in particular. Link that video down below. I do think like you could read this book first, but it is better if you read the entire series together because all of the characters connect. So this one is a little unconventional for being sweepingly romantic because our hero like literally kidnaps our heroine. Anyways, let me explain. Okay, it is very romantic. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's a mafia romance and takes place in downtown Chicago. So there's a lot of like turf wars going around, and our hero has issues with both the Italian mafia and the Chicago mafia because of something that happened in the first book. I don't want to give away spoilers. He wants revenge. They came for his family and he wants revenge. So he ends up kidnapping Nessa, who is literally like the princess of the Irish mafia. He like uses her for ransom. Traps her in like this ginormous castle and like uses her for a ransom, and very much intends to like kill her and her whole family, which I mean, sounds toxic. But he ends up falling for her. Like, of course he ends up falling for her. This is like the definition of a Beauty and the Beast retelling because she is such a sunshine heroine and he is such a grumpy hero because of like his tortured past. But it's beautiful. Like, hauntingly beautiful. It has almost like a gothic feel to it because of the setting. Listen, Sophie Lark really has such a special place in my heart. Her books are beautiful. She's another author that writes such strong heroines, and like seeing that being portrayed in romance books, oh my gosh, I just love it so much. Like, love this series so much. Like right here I have a strawberry tattoo. This is inspired by the first book in the series. Like that's how much I freaking loved this series. And will I get a tattoo for this book? Probably. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Sophie Lark's writing is phenomenal. I love her as a person. I love her as an author. Gorgeous. And this is like the illustrated edition. There's another cover for this book, but I think this cover is so gorgeous and has like different illustrations inside. Of course I can't find one now that I said that. There we go. That's what that looks like. Oof, he is so sexy. Right, my dear friends, thank you for coming along this journey with me. My emotional journey. Clearly all of these books have me in my feels, but I love them. They're beautiful. I hope you read them. And I also hope you watch Crystal's video because I know she's going to give a ton more amazing recs. As always, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. It means the world to me. I hope you guys are all staying happy and healthy, and I will see you in tomorrow's video. Bye!